Welcome to another episode of Future Proof Use Podcast. Go F yourself. I am your co-host, Aaron McKelkey, joined by John Lovig and Dan Yu. How's it going today, guys?
Hello.
Good to see you.
It's 70 degrees in New York, so pretty good.
Yeah, our topic for today's episode is what are some of the lies you're being told about your career? We have 5 lies, 5 pieces of bad advice that we'll discuss and what the real antidote to those problems are and why you shouldn't follow this commonly given advice. Dan, let's start with you. Bad piece of career advice number 1. You can do it on your own. Why is that bad advice? And what should job seekers or career-minded professionals be doing instead?
Well, as the saying goes, right, to raise a child, you need a village, right? But I think for your career, you also need a village. It's really important to have your network, kind of have your back, just not just today, but whenever you might actually need it. So I think it's really important to make sure that you cultivate and farm all of your relationships regularly.
Yeah. John, do you have any examples in your personal career or the thousands of people you've helped where someone was not open to their network or their village, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily not open to their network, but not thinking about their network as a viable source for career advancement. I coach a lot of people around this. One of my coachees just didn't think about networking in general, and particularly, staying in touch with their network and or growing their network. And come to find out that, especially this individual's in a career pivot, they're finding some really fruitful conversations by building, engaging, and continuously conversing with their network that help shape how they go about their job search. For my personal career, I always say I either got my job from a recruiter or someone in my network, and the recruiter was in my network too. So, I've had one job that I applied for that I've gotten in my entire 16, 17 years of doing this. It really is sometimes about who you know.
Yeah. And the big one I hear is people are afraid to ask for help because they'll be judged or it looks desperate or I don't really know how to ask for help. However,
What if they say no?
Yeah. What if they ignore me? And then you realize when you've done it, we've all done this personally and had friends who've done it. They're shocked and sometimes overwhelmed at the outreach and the help and the support that they get. And the way I think of it is they can't help you if they don't know that you need help. So if they ignore you, fine, that's their choice. But there are a lot of people who want to help and you just have to be willing to send the message or make the phone call to let them know.
Yeah, I met somebody a few years ago where, I was trying to pitch them on coaching services, and I said, the best way to do it is to network and meet people you don't know, because if you meet somebody you don't know, you'll guaranteed learn something from them. And they gave a lot of pushback. They said, well, I'm only really concerned about spending time with people I know and my friends and my family. And I thought, well, that's a very narrow target, and I hope that they can help you. So anyway, they didn't take me up on coaching services, which is fine, and I hope they're doing okay.
Yeah, that's basically just letting geography decide your network, which in the era of the internet and telephones, that seems ridiculous. But yeah, I think we all know doing it on your own is obviously you're going to have to do some of the work, but it's definitely bad advice and not a mindset you should have if you want to have a fruitful career. Number 2, John, let's go with you because you're probably the most AI pilled. That's the term I hear a lot with my colleagues, but AI native, you use AI the most. What about this idea that AI is the solution to your career? Like it'll help you find the job or get the interview. Why is that bad advice?
Because it's built on the premise that typically you just need to keep applying to more places in order to get a job, right? It's the idea that quantity is the most important aspect, whereas I would fundamentally disagree with that. I think it's quality. Um, we've talked about this before. AI is great, but at the end of the day, it is a tool to enhance what you're already doing. Right now, people are using it to write their resumes entirely, write their cover letters entirely, and then apply out to as many jobs as they possibly can without recognizing any signal. And because of that, we now have AI on the employer side grading AI written resumes in order to get rid of as many candidates that aren't the right person so that we can have the top selection of people, right? HR teams are overwhelmed, candidates are overwhelmed. It's not the right approach, right? Going, networking, meeting somebody within a business. The challenge here, and I think we talk about this all the time too, is people see it as a challenge when they're going to get a new job to network because they start when they're going to get a new job. They're not doing it as a function of their everyday life. And so, of course, it's daunting to go try and meet new people anytime you're looking for work. If you're always meeting those people in your discipline and you're always conversing about what you do and what you're best in the world at, and they're doing the same thing, when the time comes, they'll know if there's something for you. They'll help point you in the right direction. They'll say, "Oh, my former colleague at this company might be able to help you," versus when now you're in desperationville. Now you're like, "Hey, Aaron, I saw we do the same thing. Let's connect." And then, "Hey, you got a job for me?" Well, who are you? I don't know you, right? And that's why it's doesn't work in some people's minds, is because they're not doing it right.
Yeah, Dan, what's the worst application of this advice? As somebody who's seen lots of resumes and coached people through, someone who bought into the idea that AI is the solution, what's an ugly example of that coming to fruition?
Well, John's mentioned, the writing of the resumes, writing the cover letters, using agentic AI to spam out thousands and thousands of applications. Another example of using AI in a bad way would be actually using it in your interview as a listener and then feeding you the answer. So then you're just reading the answer, that's next to the camera. And John and I've been in the recruiting game for quite a while, and we can very quickly tell when you're reading an answer. Maybe you wrote it beforehand. Either way, you're reading an answer. Maybe the AI is feeding you. No matter what, it's just inauthentic. We can spot it a mile away. And
I think Dan and I experienced this recently, both of
we
us,
did.
and it'd be like this. Oh, hang on one sec. So one time, I had a project that I was really proud of, and what I had done was, and you're like, it's so
Yeah,
obvious. For
it's
those
so
who are
obvious.
listening and not seeing, the person that I'm referencing took a sip of water to literally wait for the AI to write the prompt and then tilted his head off camera to read it in a very robotic voice.
Yeah, and so we could see that, and the this goes back to the first piece of bad advice, right? That you think you can do it on your own, and you think that you can hack your way to a job. However, and there's a ton of people out there that sell this, right? They sell it with their content or their coaching services, but ultimately you need to interact with humans, and so to think you can hack your way to a job, I think is um, it's kind of obtuse, frankly, that you think that your use of free chat gpt or even paid chat gpt or an AI engine is going to make you any different than all of the other applicants also using the same engines.
Yep. And if you're doing that in 2026, you guys know this very well, but you're a year to 2 years behind when that might have been a novel thing, when not everyone was doing it. My addendum to this, AI is definitely not the solution to all your problems, but I think one of the reasons why this is bad advice is how people apply it. And John's example is what comes to mind for most people. It writes things for me, it sends things out for me. That is not helpful. That's a waste of time. Dan calls it the opium of action. Look, I checked off 100 applications today. If I just have a 1% interview conversion rate, I'll get one a day. If I just spam more. Here's a suggestion that I have for job seekers. We teach, and I think this was Dan who first taught me, but John does it as well. Use some sort of a database to keep track of the applications you have open, where they're at, what version of the resume you wrote, did you get a call back, the status. And that's something that you can use AI for. That isn't going to make your cover letter sound like the free version of ChatGPT or just help you spam. So you can find ways to have AI help you in the job search, but doing the writing and the content for you is the last way you should be applying it. If you're looking for a way, say, help me build an Excel sheet or a database to track these and keep the status. Because one of the mistakes people make when they're spamming is they apply to the same job 5 times. Well, I'm pretty sure that's a red flag to recruiters. Like, this person can't even keep track of where they apply. They're just spamming stuff. Bottom of the pile.
Yeah. So John actually was the one who taught me that you use an email kind of service or even a marketing automation platform like HubSpot, right? You'll get a pretty robust way of sending out emails, tracking, read receipts, and it's also a content management system. So you keep all of your versions of your resume in one place.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to bad career advice number 3. Dan, why is it bad advice when people say, oh, short stints on your resume are a red flag, or you'll never get hired if you have tenures that last less than X?
In this age of innovation and technology advancement, things are moving pretty quick, and you never know when you join a company if they're actually not on the growth. Maybe they're actually kind of on the flat part and maybe potentially declining, or maybe it's a macro thing that happens. Companies will lay off people very quickly. Sometimes, so sometimes it's last in, first out, LIFO, and so if you have a couple short stints, just understand what the story is, right? And talk to it. And sometimes even put it on your LinkedIn profile. Answer the question before it's even asked in an interview so that you're going to talk about what you're really good at in the interview rather than having to spend time answering questions. Oh, why were you here for only 9 months? Why were you only here for 6 months? You could say maybe it was a contract gig. Maybe there was the goalpost removed, and that's okay. Maybe there was just a general layoff. But if you say that in your LinkedIn profile, and maybe you need it in your resume too, but if you say it in your LinkedIn profile, you're going to answer the question so that you don't have to answer it later.
Yeah, John, what are some ways that people can explain that away? If it's something like, I just got a better offer, I was just ready for a change. That's probably not how you'd frame it on a LinkedIn resume, but what are ways you see as a recruiter that diffuse that bomb ahead of time?
Yeah, you kind of already thought in my mind of what was triggering for me to talk about. First and foremost, if you're insecure about the reason, it's going to come through. All the time when you're starting to talk to somebody about, oh, how come you left this? They either get like, or they get super defensive about it. Things happen, right? There's not the same kind of, you can't trust that you're going to be in a job for 30 years and retire these days. So, if it's a layoff, just say it. Hey, unfortunately, it was a layoff. As you can see it in public news. It's not an issue. Don't make the mistake. Like, I had someone who said, I got laid off from Twitter during Elon Musk's takeover, and it was a year before. right?
Oof.
So obviously you're lying.
Oof.
But I think part of it is realizing what's in your control. If it was for more money, I've taken a job that was after 8 months. It was,
Mhm.
I had left a job where I was a manager, moved to a job where I was an individual contributor. It, granted, part of it was necessity, part of it wasn't. Part of it was, this seems like an interesting job. But then someone presented me with a job that I just couldn't pass up the opportunity. It was something to build something and to do something that I hadn't had an opportunity to do before, and I wanted to challenge myself. If someone's going to knock me out of the interview process for trying to challenge myself and become a better employee, then they're not the right company for me.
How would you
John, I
how would
might
you
have.
frame that on your resume? What would you say? Offered exciting new opportunity at X firm? Like what's the wording that would
I would
come
just
to
put head hunted for a new opportunity, and then you could clarify. That one's not going to be great on a resume, beyond
Yeah.
that.
So, John, I might have you beat. I was at a job for 5 weeks and 2 days, and I left where it was an individual contributor job, and I got a real great opportunity to rebuild a team, and build out a whole business line. So that was a lot of fun. So I had to take that job. Five
Yeah, but
weeks.
you have me beat where you don't have to put that 5 week job on your resume. I would probably want to put my 8 month one.
That's true. That's true. I do not have it on my LinkedIn profile or my resume. So
which okay, great follow-up to this bad advice. How short would you say is okay to leave a gap versus a 5-week role? I know there's
It, de-
no
it
exact empirical
depends. Yeah.
answer.
yeah, it really
Yeah.
depends. But I mean, people leave for bereavement too, right? So you can talk about bereavement or a career break, or you went to go learn something, or you just had a sabbatical. You can talk about it on your LinkedIn profile. It's a drop down when
Couch it as a
you're.
contract, maybe.
Yep, that's it, right? So you can have it be something that's very open and honest and transparent on your profile.
Ironically, I had one person today. I was looking at a profile where someone had a like 6 month stint, and the body of his 6 month stint was longer than somewhere he spent like 6 years at. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, let's go with bad career advice number 4. John, if I'm good at my job, I don't need to worry about LinkedIn. Why is this bad advice? And what should someone who is competent at their job be using LinkedIn for?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I talk to plenty of people all the time who are really good at their jobs and didn't touch LinkedIn. And then they had to because they no longer had their job that they were really good at. And guess what? The hardest thing for them to do is update their LinkedIn. But beyond that, they also lack the social proof of being, I hate using the term, but a thought leader on LinkedIn, the opportunity to engage with their professional ecosystem on a platform that's recognized as kind of the universal platform for connecting with professionals. So if you're not using it on a regular basis, this is the same as going back to our networking, right? Posting content on LinkedIn isn't necessarily networking from a one-to-one let's chat perspective, but it is a way for you to stay in front of your own network and to be top of mind when things do potentially come up. And so regularly engaging with that, keeping your LinkedIn up to date, um, you know, commenting on other people's things, that's a way of continually, interacting with your network in a way that maybe it feels more transactional to you than a conversation, but it can be. When I see someone like a post of mine that I haven't talked to in years, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. We do notice it sometimes, and when you do, you're kind of like, oh, I wonder what that person's up to. And if it's someone who I'll reach out and say, hey, thanks for liking my post. It's been a while. How's everything? You never know.
Yeah. Dan, what's your advice to somebody who thinks they don't need to worry about their profile? Because, I'm competent, I'm skilled at being a marketer, a designer, a salesperson. It'll just take care of itself. I don't need LinkedIn.
The only person that really will remember who, if you were competent at your job or not is you. Really, that's what it boils down to. If your manager leaves, they will have a slight, remembrance of you. It's really important to make sure that you update your LinkedIn profile. If you get a new title, update it. If you get new responsibilities, list them out. Key responsibilities. If you've accomplished something really cool, that you increased sales or you reduced costs, there was a delta between X and Y as one of your metrics. Put that under your key accomplishments. I think that's a great way to make sure that everybody knows that, hey, you're not just sitting around, you are actually getting things done. And so every bit of content that you produce on LinkedIn, not just on your experience, but onto your feed, even recommendations that you write. If you write recommendations for to help somebody out, I always say be as generous as possible. Keep writing recommendations. It's all part of content. That, oh wow, Aaron wrote me a recommendation. That's pretty magnanimous and generous of him. Your audience will see, wow, Aaron wrote a recommendation. Wow, that was pretty generous of him, right? And so being that person that's a little bit bigger than just the person that does the job, I think is important to creating, maintaining, and sustaining a personal brand.
Yeah.
The other thing I would add in real quick is in the past couple of years, I talked to a lot of people who never used to have to worry about their LinkedIn when they wanted to find a new job. They were used to getting the calls and the emails from recruiters on a regular basis, and the market shifted. And all of a sudden, that wasn't good enough for them anymore. And it took them a lot more work to get their LinkedIn up to par than it would for someone who's been keeping it up to date the entire time.
Yeah, one thing that people can do is download your performance appraisals. Pretty simple, right? Download your performance appraisals. Take notes, of the things you do. Keep a journal, and then save it to your G drive, and that way you can reference it back pretty quickly as you're continuing to build out your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Two reasons why this is bad advice in my book. One, I've seen so many people who are laid off or let go, and their skill set, their competency was not the problem. How can you then tell me your competency will get you the next job? Because it wasn't the reason. Most of the people I've seen lost the role. It was reorg, acquisition, new leader, your manager who hired you left, and the new person didn't like you. It wasn't that you weren't good at your job. So it's silly to think that the antidote is different than the thing that caused the ill. The other reason is, how many people have we all talked to that go, it's so hard to post and do things on LinkedIn because now I'm unemployed and looking. What do I talk about? What do I do? You can still make that work, but we all agree it's easier when you have a role, and it's easier when you're actually not looking. It's the same thing as, say you wanted to get in shape. It's always easier to stay in shape than wait until you're really sick and at the doctor and doing terrible to say, like, now all of a sudden I'm going to reinvent myself. It would have been easier to change your diet and exercise a little bit along the way. And do yourself a favor, make it easy. Start posting when you're not thinking of what to talk about, what results, what appraisal you could pull from, like Dan said. And it's, especially if you're new to LinkedIn, it's way easier to start when you have a role.
It's the same thing too. Like, even though you're not looking, talking to a recruiter sometimes can make a huge difference because you're in the headspace of someone who's already successful. You're seeing results. You could talk about current projects with them, and then maybe you won't entertain any of the jobs, or you'll be very selective what they're working with. But when you go back to them later on, again, you've established a connection with them and they have a memory of you and they will go, oh, that person was good. Let's pick up the conversation where we left off and see if I could get them an opportunity. Recruiters tend to prefer to work with people who are just as communicative as they are.
Absolutely.
If I'm working with someone who's a closed box or difficult to schedule, chances are I'm not gonna work with you, because if I can't even get a one-on-one with you, you're going to embarrass me in front of my client, because you're going to cancel every interview. You're not going to show up. And for what? Because you think you're great? Yeah, great and hireable are two different things too.
Yeah, which is a good bridge into bad career advice number 5. I'm happy where I am. I don't need to worry about my career, whether that's LinkedIn, talking to recruiters, polishing up my job skills, looking for openings. Dan, why is that bad advice to think if you're happy where you are, you don't need to worry about your future career?
Well, I think we've really espoused the benefits of networking, not just on this call, but many of our other podcasts, that networking is the best way to find a job. I mean, it's not even close. The efficacy around networking, it's getting a warm introduction, right? So just how the sausage is made, right? You're getting a warm introduction into a company, let's say, however you network in. So that means you're going to get out of the big pile of applicants into the short pile of maybes, right? That's the most important thing that you can think of when you're networking. You want to get out of the big pile of applicants. And we've all heard the stories. Thousands of applicants for each job. And it's largely because people are using these agentic AIs to spam out applications. But if you can get out of that dynamic and get into the short pile, and internal employees are also incentivized to potentially bring in talent, saying, hey, if you bring in somebody, we'll pay you, a couple $1,000s. And so, there's that kind of nudge that that helps. And you also get good color from internal employees. Oh yeah, maybe you're looking for something in accounting, but you speak to somebody in operations. Oh yeah, the manager's name is Bob, right? And Bob actually reports to the CFO, Jane, and Jane is this type of personality, and this is what they're looking for, right? That color you cannot beat. You can only get it from networking and being open to work and continuing to have conversations. That's the only way you get those opportunities.
It's also, when you look at the way HR and internal recruitment talks about the discipline, typically there's a much bigger obsession with source of talent, right? More so than the agency side, even though we collect that information. But 99% of the time it's LinkedIn for us. Number one source of talent, both in terms of speed to hire and quality of hire measures, is always internal referrals. So if that's the number one source and the best source, most companies invest in that. That's why they pay referral bonuses. And so if you know that that's a number one source, how do you become the person someone refers? And it shouldn't be when the job's open. It shouldn't be you asking them to refer you into the job. It should be, you should get to the point where they're reaching out to you and saying, hey, you'd be perfect for this.
Yeah. And that also brings up the hidden job market too, right, John? Because, hey, we're thinking about launching this new division and having these new roles. And, you've been such a thoughtful contact, and thanks for keeping in touch. Why don't you think about it?
Right? Well, and it's also, the hidden job market is going to become more and more prevalent, because a lot of talent leaders right now, particularly when I see thought leaders in the space, they're talking about not posting jobs anymore because it's not worth the effort. Mm-hmm. So, we've gotten to the point where too many people apply to jobs that aren't even remotely qualified for them. And then even the ones that are qualified maybe they're only remotely qualified for. And companies aren't looking for that.
Yeah,
So they'd
it's
rather just not open the job and have someone like myself go find you,
mhm.
which is why your LinkedIn
Yep.
needs to be up to date.
Yep.
Yeah, and
What?
ultimately, you have to make it easy for the recruiter like John or myself to find you. Got to make it easy. So have a robust LinkedIn profile. Really talk about all the things you can bring, not just your skills, but your experiences, and make it easy for us to find you.
Yeah. And if you're one of those people who looks at your LinkedIn profile and it's been, I think we had a person who worked with us 8 or 10 years since their last post. It's very daunting. Or maybe you've never posted, or my personal favorite, you only repost the company that you work at's content, and that's what your whole post history is. The LinkedIn Quick Start Guide is in the description, and that's the best on ramp. How I become a LinkedIn regular and update my profile, write my about me, and start coming up with ideas of what to post. But these 5 lies, yeah, the LinkedIn Quick Start Guide is the antidote to a lot of them, because doing it on your own is not the answer. AI is not the solution to all your problems. In fact, for most people, it's the root of your problem, because you think scaling and spamming more will fix the problem. It won't. It's going to make it worse. The idea of short stints being a red flag, keep your profile updated. And like Dan said, be proactive about labeling or communicating that so you don't have to answer it. If you're good at your job, that's not going to save you. You're going to have to network yourself and put your ideas out there, because being good at your job is probably not the reason you're going to be looking for work the next round. And if you are happy where you are, you should be thinking about the next thing, so that people like Dan and John can find you, or internal people you used to work with have you top of mind to make a referral internally for a future role. So, Dan, John, appreciate you guys, your expertise in the recruiting space, especially now that there's a lot of bad advice out there for our career-minded listeners and career-oriented people. You can follow our LinkedIn page. We also have a website, which is linked below, and there's live classes coming up every other week on Thursdays. There's also recordings of those if there's not a live one that fits your schedule. Check that out on futureproof-you.com. Dan, John, I'm Aaron. Thank you for joining us. We will catch you in the next episode.
See ya.